Hey guys, so today we are going to talk about all the classics I read this year. I read 18, the very diverse, very different time period. I learned a lot. I was very entertained and also very saddened when you think of certain experience some people have, because some of them have real historical moments in the books. So I'm going to start with the oldest rundown and give you bits and pieces what I think. It's not going to be a full review because I did a full review on all of these books, so I will link all of them in the description, but I wanted to have this in terms of gathering them all and maybe influence people who are looking to read classics, not sure which one to pick up. I am not an expert when it comes to classic, but I fell in love with it over the last year, and I'm still in awe of the classic and will definitely encourage anyone to pick it up. So if you are wondering, just leave a comment at the bottom if you are interested in reading some of these books and you're wondering, you know, if it's going to fit into your kind of books that you like to read. Which I would say pick books that really similar to your reading taste now, because there's classics for really almost every genre you can think of, because the time period, you know, people were writing then, and it really, but the books that I have ranges from 1840 all the way to 1967. So I have classic to modern classics. So I'm going to give the rundown and briefly talk about them again. Not a full review. I will link the full reviews in the bottom. So the oldest is Oliver Twist, and Oliver Twist, I enjoyed. Dickens knows how to get me my feelings sometimes. I'm here for him, and sometimes I'm side-eyeing like that ending needs to go. In this case, I love the ending. This is a story that he found a way to really make some of the poor situation the villain, which is definitely different. Normally you don't get that in books, you know, the rich folks are the villain, but in this case you got a lot of poor people up in here as the villain. Love the ending. Did a full review on it. The full, yes. And I also buddy read this with Denise from Brown Girl Reading. I also buddy read the Old Curiosity Shop. Did not like this ending. This was one of his series where books where that was initially a newspaper article series, and eventually they turned it into a full-on novel. Loved it, but there was just some part in the middle that was not necessary. You can tell it was just fillers. Hated the ending. Hate the ending. The ending ruined the book for me. It's like going on this long adventures, and when you get to the end, this is what you're giving me? This is what the man gave me? I was upset. Then you have Little Dork. That's my favorite out of all three, guys. Little Dork was, the characters. Oh, the characters. Go watch my review so you can really get the feel for why I said the characters. But he did his thing in this one. This one really talks about how people work dealing with being the poverty level in the UK back then, and how debt prison came about, and how banks were pretty much ruining life, and there was no consequence, there was no stability, and you see certain things that happen that you just scratch your head like, wow, this is how people were really living. But again, he created characters that made you laugh, that made you sometimes root for people, sometimes side-eyeing, sometimes you want to choke a character when you're reading this. This was a long one. This was 860 pages of me loving every bit of it. Love that one. Then we had Wonderful Adventures of Mrs. Sequel in Many Lands. Now this one is a memoir from a Jamaican author. Now she is a nurse, and I was very for this because didn't know we have any classic that goes that far back for Jamaicans, but this one goes way back there. This was in the 1850s, and she did a thing where she talks about her life as a nurse in different areas in South America and also in UK, and her experience with certain war that was happening. Again, did a review on this. I will link it, but I think it's a good memoir that didn't bore me, that I did learn a lot about that era, and I was here for that one. Madame Bovary. This is classic before Desperate Housewife. This was the first. And this is a woman that wanted a life that her husband can afford, and didn't want her husband either. And she was just doing the most, and ruined her reputation, ruined credit, ruined his credit. It was so much drama in this that I laughed. I laughed because it was just like, oh, these people were messy back then, but in a different way, like messy where you wouldn't even expect it, that kind of deal. Check that out. Wives and daughter. The father in this book, Molly Daddy, had to be one of the best characters in some of these classics that I've read. One of the best. When he showed up on the page, I was forehead. I wanted to know what mess was gonna come out of his mouth, because he was the shade king up in this book. The way he used to shade these women, I was for it. It was entertaining. It was like, did he say what I think he said? I love this, and I'm just so disappointed that the miniseries that they did on it did not show that part of his character like the book. The book made you love his character, and also this was not really a romance, and the series made it seem like it was a romance. It is not a romance, guys. It's definitely not a romance. It is a fact of life in terms of how people were living and what this idea, what you need as a husband, the status of, you know, the life you want to live, so how you choose your husband, that kind of deal. That's what you get in this, but it's not a romance, guys. No. Then we have the Prosperous memoir of Prosperous. Now, this is a fiction in a memoir setting. So there's a dead man talking about his life, and it felt realistic, like very real, very realistic, but it wasn't creepy like I thought it was gonna be, because at first it just felt like it was gonna be some creepy mess, and I think I psyched myself up for that when I started reading, I was like, this is so normal. But this was a Brazilian classic, so I was very happy to get another country on the list, so I was good about that. Alright, so now we're getting into the Harlem Renaissance, which I won't talk much about because I did an entire video talking about the Harlem Renaissance, so I will link that. We have Kane, which is what's kicked off the series. The author was a real life passing, guys, a real life, but he was creative as hell, because this book had a mixture of poetry, traditional writing, and play, and the way he did it and combined it where you can analyze the heck out of this book, and you really grasp it if you really pay attention and take your time with it. Love it. It is a challenge to read. It's not like the other books on this list. It's one that I think is the most challenging out of all of them. Quicksand, Nell Lawson. Passing, Nell Lawson. Nell Lawson. She is a treasure. She's a treasure. The woman can write a book in like 150 pages and it's a masterpiece. It's packed of punches. It gives you everything you want. She is amazing writer, and she should be getting more shine. I know a lot of people have been picking up Passing recently, and that's because, you know, Passing, when you think of Vanishing Half, you need to read Passing. Also the other one, The Black of the Berry, that's another book that is very influenced in Passing. So if you read those two, if you read Vanishing Half, read Passing as well as The Black of the Berry, and you will see why I said that. Then we have Not Without Laughter by Langston Hughes. It's the last classic I read. It was his debut. It really depicts an American story, and the book was set in the early 1900s, but it was published in 1930. But when you think of the lifestyle then, it was just an amazing story. I did a review of that. I will link it. Definitely check out the review and how I feel about this. Then you have the other two books from Claude McCain, Emile Petit. Then you have Romance in Marseille. These books were written during the Harlem Renaissance, but they were published recently. I did a whole take on him, a video. I will link that. You can check it out. You get to know a lot about this author. He is amazing. He's an amazing poet. I have his poetry book that I've been reading and giving you a taste of. Definitely pick that one up too. He is known for his poetry, so a lot of people didn't really know when I started reviewing his book that he actually has novels. He has quite a few, guys, and I picked up 2 more that we'll be reading in 2021. Then we are down to the modern classic. These are books that's written in the 50s and 60s, and then we start with East of Eden. Masterpiece. Definitely one of my favorite books of this year. This man took a biblical story and made it his own, and had you grab you, made you, I mean, I literally took this story like I was like studying for something, because I was taking so much notes. I was reading the Bible in terms of certain things that was mentioned and comparing them. It was just such a good book, and I could see why it got so much praise, and I'm glad I read it. Absolutely a thumbs up. Definitely recommend it. Go Tell It on the Mountain. This was James Baldwin's debut. You come out like this with your debut? We should have known he was going to be great. This was good. Another Country. This book reflects this year in so many ways. I read this book and felt very strongly about it, but then after a series of events happened and I started thinking about the book again, it was such a different, it's like having a different take on it that really grabbed me, that made me really appreciate the storyline and the message in this, that, you know, you realize in a sad way, so much has changed, but so much haven't changed, you know, in such a sad, but in a way that this book really opened your eyes on some of that. I think a lot of people should read this book and really get a grip of life in how African Americans feel, and especially in a setting where you might be the only black person and you have to, your feelings are not understood, and it's so many different theme in this book, and in a lot of ways sex was a major part of this book as well, but it was used in a way that was different, that if you don't really like grasp it, you might just look at it as just a messy situation, but there's so much more that sex represented in this book that I thought was interesting. And then I read a comedy, The Housing Arc. You want a good laugh? You want some Caribbean shenanigans? Read this book. This book definitely entertained me in a lot of ways. And I like that he had a message in it, because he talks about immigration in the UK and how certain community wouldn't accept or wanted Caribbean people in their community, and how they were living. You know, there was no housing codes, and people living in this small area with a stranger and had kind of not have a say. Rent was not worth what they were paying for, you know, and the housing wasn't worth what they were paying for, that kind of deal. But then he found ways to make you laugh, so you didn't really dwell on it as long. But there were some moments, moments of, you can see that racism played a part in terms of what they think certain culture, you know, like, you know, they have an issue with my people because y'all know I'm Jamaican. So there was that moment in the book that what they thought of Jamaicans and that kind of deal, where I found was very interesting. But yeah, pick that one up. So this is where I'm gonna end this, and overall, there's quite a few of these books that I will never forget, that I would definitely would reread in the future. And there's some that's definitely going to show up on my top 10. The top 10 is going to be hard for me to pick, guys, because I read really some good books this year, and this is just a classic. So, you know, we haven't gone to the other genres yet that I had some really good books. So yeah, so I'm going to end this here, and tell me what's like, if you read any classics this year, what was your favorite classics? Because I'm interested in learning different genres of classics to add to my list and keep reading classics, because they're good. They're good, guys. So thanks for watching and have a good day. Bye.